criteria. So quality is important. So we need to know that your product has been tested, and it has also gone through whatever the regulator of the industry requires. So if you're a caterer, it's important to note that you have a food acceptability certificate that issued by your municipality. So we do take quality very, very seriously, which is why we have the tick in our logo. Then we also assess for environmental standards. So we'll help you with that, because we don't require an ISO certificate necessarily. But for us, we need to know that you're adhering to safe environmental standards and also fair labor practices. So for us, I made mention that labor is on our board. It's very important that companies adhere to the labor laws of the country. You have a template in place to award your those that are employed by you, to award them that template of contract of employment, and that you adhere to the labor laws of the country. So that is what Pride SA in essence stands for, and that's what our logo stands for. So that's what we request companies to adhere to in order for them to become member companies. I am representing also our membership manager, Alicia Logan, here today. And Alicia and her team are really important in terms of assisting companies to vet them. So when you do come on board as a member of Pride SA, you'll be requested to complete a membership certificate, or application form rather. And there you'll answer questions pertaining to local content, quality, environmental standards, and fair labor practices. But we'll also ask you for other compliance documentation. So it's not a rigorous process. I promise it's very, very easy to become a member. But we do ask you to play ball and to provide the membership team with those documents that they require. And as soon as a day or two, you can become a member of Pride SA. It's quite quick, just to set your minds at ease. And the membership certificate is awarded once you are vetted, and you pay the membership fee, which I'll share with you in a little bit. So you might still be questioning, what is Pride SA all about? You've got wonderful entities that support small businesses. Consumer Goods Council has the barcoding system, GS1, in place. You've got CETFA, that is really one of the entities that is supported by the Department of Small Business Development. You've got IP protection. You've got various entities, IDC, etc., to support companies. But Pride SA is really put in place to support our members in terms of providing access to market opportunities for them. So the way we do things is a multitude of ways. So I made mention that we are present in work with the public sector, private sector, and also our consumer education. So looking at the work we do with the private sector, which also cross-cuts to consumers because they are the ones that are supporting e-commerce. So we do have an e-commerce strategy into play. We do have one that is currently running, predominantly in the B2C market. So we've got in the region of 20-something companies that are already our partners. Some of them are, if we can just make mention of Zulzi. I'm sure you know Zulzi. I'm so proud of that member company because they are the brainchild of Checkers 6060, for instance. They've got a multitude of businesses, but they also have the grocery delivery system, which is really just phenomenal. So Zulzi is a member of ours, as well as a supporter of ours. So we also have Takealot. Very proud of the work that Takealot is doing. They are really also shaping the work that they're doing in terms of supporting small business, but also looking at the informal sector and how they can support the Kasi economy, as well as made by artisans. But the list is over 20. So we're really proud of the work that we've done with these partners. And so just to take a step back, what Pride SA seeks to achieve is to say to these 20-something platforms, to say, thank you for believing in Pride SA. And also, they've also listened and taken into account the membership base we have. And what we've asked, we're negotiating quite hard to say to them, hey, can you please waive the listing fee or give us a reduced commission structure so that our members can list on your platforms quite easily, and it's not a hurdle for them. So they have allowed for that to happen. But not only that, they also allowed our members to utilize the Proudly SA logo. Takealot is launching this month, maybe next month, a Proudly SA page on Take-A-Lot. So those will just be consisted of our member companies, for instance. So member companies can utilize the logo, of course, have preferential listing on these sites, and that helps us. So when it comes to those periods of time when we ask South Africans to, you've got more money, or you have to spend money on your children when it's back to school, or perhaps festive season, you might have a little bit more to spend, or do care about spending and spoiling a little bit more. We ask that consumers spend on local manufacturers. And it helps that we have these partners in place, because we can then say to the public, when we do have our various um, campaigns, that we say, you can find Proudly SA's products on Zilzi, Take-A-Lot, made by artisans, and the list continues. It makes our job much more easier, and we're finding that all of our partners are also putting campaigns in place to promote Proudly SA members' products and services, which is really wonderful. Then we also have B2B elements such as BizMed, which is really they are in the predominantly the medical devices space, and that talks to the work we did in COVID in 2020, where we assisted over 60 manufacturers over the line in order to make them procurement ready, so that the hospitals, consumers, businesses can buy from them. So the e-commerce space is really very important to us. And I've asked Ethan to just prepare the video for us, just to showcase Proudly SA's own e-commerce store that will be put in place later on. And then if you look at the work we do in the private sector procurement commitments, we have an online platform. It's called the Market Access Platform. We have worked on this one for a long, long time, but we have buy-in from various association bodies in industries, etc. So associations, industry bodies, also your big if you look at the commerce, Saki, and all of these members are really buying into the market access platform. So it is a platform for member companies, but what we are doing is we are matchmaking our members with corporate buyers. So the CPOs, the chief procurement officers of big corporates, are really the companies we're targeting. So we've got a great partner in the JSC. So all of the listed companies and their buyers, we are targeting them to be our pilot, to enlist on the market access platform for them to then buy from our members, B2B, using MAP. So I also mentioned that we also have the Proudly SA e-commerce store, which is called the Proudly SA online store. We're also looking at not only just delivering to consumers, but also there's a wholesaler element. There's also bulk buying available. So the B2B element is really not
Sorry,
just a
Janine.
showcase. Yes.
Apologies to interrupt. Can you
Yep.
just ask people to switch off their cameras
Sure, Miles, 100%. Everybody on the call, may I please ask you to switch off your camera
and audio?
and audio? Yes, I did find there was some paper noises I heard. Thank you.
Yeah, there's somebody whose camera is on, and I'm not sure if they're aware that it's on. So
Sure, I'm also on video or presentation mode, so I can't see myself. Thank you. Mars, is it better?
much better. They've
Thank you
received
so
the
much.
message.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you so much. So looking at the work we do in the private sector, so we have the market access platform. So it is supposed to be, we are pitching it at that level where we do the B2B introductions, it's matchmaking on a different level. Continuous matchmaking, if that makes sense. I know all of these wonderful expos and even our own, we do have a very, very strong focus on matchmaking. But for us, the market access platform will be Proudly SA's really pride and joy in terms of showcasing our membership base to those who are buying the private sector. We also have the furniture portal on our website. So we work with various partners, SAFI, the South African Furniture Initiative, the DTIC, but the portals that we have in place, we are really looking to expand on what we've got. We also, at Expos and Markets, we have our own expo, the Proudly SA Buy Local Summit and Expo, coming up on the 17th and 18th of March. I think what I'll do is I'll share with Miles the delegate invite, and then that can be shared with you. Hope to see you there if you're not yet a member. and don't know about it, we'd love to see you there. So I'll share that invite with you. But we also then tap into various trade fairs, where we look at uh, various markets, that might be in metro areas. It might not. Dorpies and villages, it could be there. We really do take our members everywhere as much as possible, as much as the budgets allow, and as much as we, as a Proud USA campaign, we do solidify wonderful partnerships. So we've got great partners that allow us to exhibit and showcase our membership base, which is wonderful. And then we do a lot of retail lobbying. So we are very excited. We've got a great relationship with Clicks that is being explored, and they are looking to enlist our member companies in a big way. So quite excited with the work that we're doing there. But don't be disheartened. We're also doing what we can to really appeal to the other retailers, specifically FMCG retailers. But also we've got a new partner on our books, Food Lovers Market. So I'm quite excited to see the work that they're doing and how we can connect with them, not just with our membership base, but also to make sure the consumers know about making the right choice by buying local. For those that are interested, yes, we are appealing to the public sector to buy local. It's a very tough environment because of the regulations that are currently being updated. So we're a significant player in terms of providing comment and consulting with them. So we are looking forward to the revival of the designated sectors to make sure that government does their best to buy local. We are looking to work with the various sector desks at the DTIC to make sure the likes of the prisons, the hospitals, schools, even anybody who's in the market to buy catered items or food items, that they include elements of that to ensure that local manufacturers are local caterers, local suppliers are really supported. So we are really doing a lot of work in that space. And we're also assisting the various entities to showcase what it is that when government puts a tender out, or their request for an RFQ, etc., that we do as much as we can to promote local. And so much so that we have a very good relationship with National Treasury, that our member companies in that space can be on Treasury, the CSD database, which is in place, so that our logo is quite visible and anybody buying for government knows what the local equivalents are. Because it's all good and well to say you might give that job to an individual, but the individual might choose to buy from China, who knows? But for us, we want to spearhead, we want local manufacturers, local services providers to be at the top of the CSD whenever anybody makes a decision for the public sector to buy local. So we're doing a lot of work in that space. Also, in terms of the regulations, I made mention of that, but we also have a tender monitoring function. So whenever a tender goes out, we've got about a system that monitors in the region of 800 and something websites. I say something, it's about 815 right now, but we monitor websites, so many websites, that whenever we have any movement in a tender being posted, etc., that our system is alerted and we extract that tender. We then send it on to our member companies for them to have, like, again, first-hand access to market opportunity, albeit with government. And then we also send that tender off to the DTIC, specifically their industrial procurement units, for them to monitor any provision, any local content mention. And if there's no provision or there's no local content mention, it gives us the power to go to that entity, the municipality, the metro, the provincial department, whatever the case might be, hospitals, etc., to say, hey, can we educate you about the importance of buying local? And we ask these entities for them to include a local content provisions in their tenders. So I just wanted to make mention of that. I think it's quite important. We also then part of the state-owned enterprises procurement forum. That's important. That's where the education for SOEs takes place. And I think there are elements where they also buy local in this industry, in this space that we are today. So I did very, very broadly speak about the work we're doing in the private sector. But for us, we're doing a big, big push on asking corporates to give localization commitments. So in 2018, we had a wonderful session with our president, the Jobs Presidential Summit, Presidential Job Summit, apologies, in 2018, where we took 20 of our member companies to give localization commitments. And these were predominantly in these industries. You're looking at banks, hospitals, schools, autos, retailers, manufacturers, and they then gave localization commitments at that summit. But we then expanded on the work that we're doing in terms of including this as part of our annual flagship event, the Buy Local Summit and Expo, where we have the private sector giving localization commitments. So they are amazing. I mean, we're always targeting about 8 to 10 billion rand of procurement spend happening in the country, more than what there was before. So every company that gives a commitment, we are pushing that they procure more from local manufacturers. So I really do appeal for you to come to the Buy Local Summit and Expo. We are showcasing and really celebrating these commitments. But it's not a talk show. We don't have all the Proud ESA colleagues on the line, but we have a department that is really focused on following up on these commitments and us celebrating with the corporates their wins every year. So it's not just a talk shop, but it's really a way for us to showcase and celebrate the work that the private sector is doing. But we also showcase the market access platform. I'd made mention of that very, very early on, but it's the a way for us to connect our members with corporate buyers. So you might have I know the Franchise Association, I can speak on their behalf. I know that they've got their own targets for their members to procure more from yeah, woman-owned businesses, particularly Black women-owned businesses. That is the big, big, big focus for them. And we've got a great base of Black women-owned businesses that are making amazing products. So they are supporting our membership base on that front. So if it really looks at not just how the business is structured, but also it looks at how big the business is, etc. And it assists the corporates who have their own targets in place to then introduce them to the members that are relevant for their targets. So we are very excited about the market access platform and look forward to us showcasing more members there to the corporate buyers. This slide really just talks about the work that we're doing in terms of introducing our membership base to corporate buyers. So looking at the Franchise Association, as you can imagine, hundreds of franchises, a multi-billion rand of spend in the franchise sector every year. So they're a major contributor to the GDP, and they have a wonderful program in place to really uplift local businesses, but also to really they've got a great spend. So we have a great relationship with them, and we've had numerous engagements with them. We provide exhibition space for our member companies to introduce them to various franchises, and we've got great success stories in this space. So it's just to give you a showcase of the work that we're doing. This looks at the portals that we have in place that I made mention of before. This is a success story looking at medical PPE back in 2020 when it was COVID days. I made mention of the work we're doing in the public sector. I will skip on this slide because I know I'm taking very, very long. Apologies for that. But just to showcase the work that we're doing to get the public sector to buy local. And now, very exciting, this is quite a new space for Proud ESA, the e-commerce space. But Ethan will showcase the video for you in a short while when we showcase our own online e-commerce site. But just to give you a sense of the work we're doing with consumers. So very, very quickly, we do more activations, festival activations. I mean, our favorite is the Delicious Festival. Over the years, we've probably uplifted about 60, or over a span of about 4 years, 20 businesses. And we know every time they take part in Delicious, they pay off all their debts. They They procure more machinery. They open factories. We just got such amazing examples of how 40,000 festival goers has impacted our member companies, not just with them being consumers, but of course the consumers are also have jobs. Standard Bank gave one of our members a wonderful contract because of the introduction via Delicious Festival, where we were able to take our member companies to the Delicious Festival and showcase what it is that they're doing. So every membership fee that is paid by Proud SA members, it gives access to those companies, get free access to all of these programs we have in place. And I'll share with you the membership fee structure in a bit. We have online competitions, consumer advertising, sport events, labor mobilizations, been very successful. Consumer expos, I guess that's delicious, university activations, etc. So a lot of work that we're doing in this space, and this slide does not do justice. We've also got a local wine expo. We also have our local fashion police, which has really uplifted the messaging about wearing local. I'm going to leave you with a video, and when we do go over to the e-commerce side of things, Ethan will play our video for you. But I'd like to leave you with our latest ad, and we are hoping to broadcast this one again. But this is the third one in a series of wonderful ads that we've been lucky enough to be a part of. The first one was Dr. John Kani walking through the various factories and them closing down because we made our procurement decisions with Italy for the suits, etc. And then the second one was produced in 2020 when, we had to close our borders and our local companies kept us alive. And the second ad really played tribute to the local companies. It was called Game Time. So it was saying, gosh, we're facing this adversity now, being COVID, closing our borders, and local companies had to keep us alive in COVID. So we celebrated those companies. And now after COVID, we've had a chance to think and deliberate about what has happened. Now we have a chance. It's game time now. It's halftime now. It's halftime. What are we going to do to make it better? And this really just talks about the legacy we hope to leave with the next generation. So I hope this ad means something to you. It's quite emotive, and I'm excited to share it with you. And then I'll share our fee structure with you before we then hop over to the e-commerce discussion. Thank you. I'll share this ad with you now.
There's a voice that is calling, loudly calling, day by day, the voice of the future.
When I started my business, all I wanted was to create jobs and a legacy for the next generation, because I see opportunity when others see impossibility.
It all started with a thought and then a seed in the garden, which grew into my very own farm that feeds the whole nation daily.
Cotton, silk, and a little bit of treasure, I create masterpieces that give South Africans an identity, comfort, and confidence, because when you look good, you feel good.
From the factory workers to the warehouse and then over the seas, I want to show the world what proudly South African looks like. It all started with just some ink on paper and inspiration to bring people together. With my furniture, I now help create spaces that are beautiful, comfortable, and authentic to human light and connection.
I've always been driven by curiosity. It fueled my dreams to create automobiles that accelerate our nation into greater possibilities and the beauty of the unknown.
I was born into a rainbow nation. My life has been full of colors and mixed flavors. And when I started my bakery, I wanted to share the joy with the world and with South Africans in particular.
All I ever dreamt of was to be a bird and fly high. And now I have the wings to help others fulfill their dreams of flying high too.
But it can only be a dream until you make it a reality. All they need is your faith, your trust, your loyalty, your appreciation.
And most importantly,
Your support.
because supporting local businesses
Helps create jobs
and secures our future.
South Africa, their future is in your hands. So what are you going to do about it? Be proudly South African. Buy local to create jobs. There's a
Wonderful. That was our ad. And then if you look at our membership fee structure, for you to become a member of Proudly SA, to use the logo, then to access our various benefits, which is really our value proposition for our members. If you are turning over less than 5 million rand, your membership fee is 500 rand per annum. So very affordable. Something we've discounted prior to from 2017 onwards, and we have not increased it. So quite affordable, but we hope this presentation has really invigorated not only your passion for local, for you to become a member, but also for whenever you do have that sense of it's time to buy something, you really turn the product over and look at where the product is made, the made of origin label, or look out for the Proudly SA logo. And looking forward to our e-commerce discussion now. And apologies for taking so long, but thank you so much for this opportunity. And the Wakanda connection is very strong. I hope you know that, especially with Dr. John Carney. So quite lovely to know that. Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for that, Janine. It was really insightful. We really thank you. Ethan, if you could just take us through the e-commerce platform. We only have 5 minutes left of your slot. Please be mindful of that.
Just to say, Ethan is a very new member to the team. So Ethan, if you can showcase what the Proudly SA e-commerce site is all about, I'd appreciate that with the video, if you can access it. Otherwise, I'll be happy to share it from my side.
Yes, I think Events is busy with that video. Also, not sure if you guys can see me or not. But regardless, thank you guys for the discussion. I know we're pretty pressed on time. Proudly SA is making great headway in terms of e-commerce. We are on the forefront of something big, which will empower a lot of local businesses and give those businesses a chance to access markets that they may not have had access to before, and give those businesses a chance at exposure to a lot more people in the private sector and public sector than they would have without our system. So I think what's on the horizon for Proudly SA's e-commerce is very, very exciting, and it's something to watch. And basically, just taking from Janine's discussion, we are uplifting businesses, Proudly South African businesses, all over, from small to the large enterprises, and it's really exciting. I would like to show that video if Events has it, just to give a bit more context, and then I would be happy to switch over to Miles if he's ready after the video. If Events can just help me out with that.
We do see the video, but it's not playing currently. Okay, I'm going to try from my side, everybody. Okay, great. Let's try from my side.
All right, so it's playing on our side. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have sound.
It's supposed to have sound. Events team, just stop sharing if that's okay. I'll share from my side. I'm ready to play. Thank you. Let me see if I can share from my side. Thank you.
Welcome to a journey of local excellence. At our proudly South African online store, you'll find the finest, locally made products crafted with passion and skill. Every product tells a story. From handmade crafts to innovative designs, each item embodies the spirit of local producers whose products have been vetted for local content and quality by Proudly South African. Experience hassle-free shopping with our user-friendly interface. Choose from various payment methods and delivery options tailored to your convenience. Join us in celebrating South African-made products and growing their market share. Want to showcase and sell your own creations? Contact Proudly SA today. Explore, shop, celebrate Proudly South African products. Buy local to create jobs. Showcasing local excellence, your gateway to South Africa's finest products.
There we go. Just to say, just to add to what Ethan was saying, we believe and we've been told the story we've created is the first of its kind on the African continent, being that we are simply collecting products from our member companies. So a consumer might order through one order from 5 or 6 different companies of our that consists of our members, and that order then gets expedited to the buyer, which we believe is the first of its kind in the country, which is really, really exciting. It's a multi-vendor store, so every one of our member company has their own shop in the Proudly SA online store mall, so to speak. So quite exciting to launch. We're launching later in March, and we're really on the brink of something great. And it really is a platform dedicated only to Proudly SA member products. And as you know, we vet them in accordance with our 4 key criteria. So it really is a platform we are very proud of, and it's got support from various sectors of society. So we are looking forward to it being quite successful and really to hero our member products, but also free to list. So it's a wonderful another benefit for our members that won't cost them something additional when they do join the campaign. So another great benefit for them. Thank you so much, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Janine. Thank you so much, Ethan. That was very insightful. I think without further ado, we can welcome Mr. Miles Kubeka. Hello, Miles, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody.
Perfect.
Can I share my screen? I'm not sure if you can see the screen.
We can see it, Miles. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Super excited to have you all on board on this session. And I would also obviously like to thank our partners, Proudly South Africa. I think this was a very informative session. I think everybody is now got a deep insight as to what the organization does and also what the opportunities are. I can't implore you enough to register and become a member. And my talk is actually going to sort of couch why this is going to matter, particularly in relation to e-commerce going forward. I'm calling it a little bit of state of the world, and then we'll go into state of Mzansi. I'm going to be joined by a colleague of mine, Stacey Sagers from Kenta, and she'll be discussing more in detail what the lay of the land looks like for South Africa and why essentially going digital or online is important. So I think we've all seen what's happening around the world with regards to trade. I think most of us, myself included, have been Trump founded for the last month or so, and I don't think it's going away. And I think you even saw what happened yesterday. You know, there's a lot of in the world where people are nationalizing I suppose, products and self-interest. So that would mean it's going to be pretty much a little bit more difficult to sell things globally, or at least going to be more expensive when it's landed in foreign countries. So knowing that, and particularly, I think you've seen South Africa is also a little bit in the crosshairs of that. We might just catch stray bullets for this. So we need to be
So
prepared.
sorry. So sorry, Miles. Sorry to cut you off. We have people on the line who said they can't hear you clearly. They say the volume is quite low.
Is that can you hear me?
I'm using headphones. I can hear you clearly, but yeah, I'm just getting messages saying that you're speaking very low. I think the volume is low itself.
Okay. Everything on my side seems okay. Let me speak a bit louder. Will that help?
I think that should do it.
Okay, I can also put on my headphones, I guess. Let's give that a try. Give me a sec.
Okay, noted.
Sir?
All right, sounds good on my side. I'll just wait for people to let me know. I think you can continue in the meantime. Sorry about that.
Guys, is this better? Please give us feedback.
It's a lot better, Miles.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead then, if that's okay. So yeah, as I was saying, the world is at a little bit of crossroads right now. And the question is, what is this going to mean for us as South Africa, us as a continent? And that's what we're gonna double click on today. The biggest thing for me is that when you see the signs, well, when there's blood in the floor, it's an opportunity for an entrepreneur. If the signs are there, let's not wait until things, get worse. Let's prepare for that. And I think, you know, if we do nothing but learn from what happened with COVID, I think if situations escalate, this is essentially going to be a COVID 2.0. So let's be prepared. Let's take whatever little time we have and just get ahead of the curve so that it doesn't impact us like COVID did. I don't want to be alarmist, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So what does this mean, this current state of the world for us as Africa and as South Africa? I'm sure some of you have heard of AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which basically meant that if we are exporting things into the US, we have currently an agreement that's ending this year that allows you to export things to the US without being charged tariffs or, so when your product lands overseas, they don't charge you more duties that they would have otherwise charged you as customs duties. So that becomes a discount on your product. So that would make the product when it lands overseas in the US cheaper than a comparable product that comes from non-AGOA countries, right? So that is essentially a massive discount that we've been allocated, and it's been running for a while, but it's looking to be renewed this year. And the likelihood, as you've seen in the last 2 weeks when we started catching strays, is that it's unlikely that it's going to be renewed. So South Africa might not get new tariffs, or we might not be lobbied with tariffs, but if AGOA goes away, technically it's kind of like a tariff, because now we would be essentially selling our products to the US at comparable prices as everybody else. So they wouldn't be cheaper. So indirectly, that's kind of like a tariff for us. So that's likely to happen. Okay, we hope it doesn't, but let's prepare for the worst. That's number one. Number two, the upside is Africa in the last while has gotten itself organized. We've seen after the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and now there's even an e-commerce protocol, like basically how do African countries trade with each other. Again, this is an amazing great step, because this will essentially mean now you can sell our products to the rest of the continent. Because fundamentally, let's be clear, e-commerce means you are no longer going to be bridled by your storefront, by your city, by your country, by your continent, right? Because ultimately, you're wanting to sell your products. And that money will come into South Africa. It's going to create jobs because you're going to build bigger factories in order to service and support a bigger customer base across the continent and ideally across the globe. And this is why e-commerce matters. And this is why what Proudly SA is working on is important, because it gives you a platform to both showcase your product to the world and ultimately sell them to the world. So this is why that matters. And my job was to essentially lay that foundation. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Stacey Seggers, who will be taking us into, so bringing it back home. What does this mean for you in your business now? Like, what is the lay of the land? What are the things you could be doing to firstly sell your products to South Africans? Because fundamentally, if you can sell it to South Africans, it makes it easy to sell it to everybody else, right? So let's firstly find out what is required to sell products to South Africa, and what is the state of South Africa in terms of being receptive to receiving your product, in terms of digital, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Stacey. So let me jump on to you.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Miles. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the perspective from, or something that's certainly going to inform your guys' plans from the perspective of consumers, who are obviously the lifeblood of where your products and services go to. And Miles, apparently I'm controlling your screen, but yeah, okay, cool. So the results here are informed by an amazing study that we run every year at Kantar. So Kantar is the world's largest consumer research agency, so we know consumers. This study we've been running since the time of COVID, and each year we speak to 500 connected South Africans. So that means South Africans who access the internet, so just position that in your minds. The data that I'm going to be sharing with you today is from the April study, April last year, and we've got the new one coming out this year with a whole bunch of additional questions and things, because as you know, the world changes so frequently, so we just add new questions and learn as we go along. So I'm going to share you a little bit of a view of how South Africans are feeling at the moment. Now, just to orientate yourself, this was, as I say, the report came out last year in April. We did the field work in the month before that, March. And so at the time, load shedding was still a really big thing, okay? So when we say to South Africans, what are the things that you're most concerned about? Load shedding came up as the biggest one, followed by the rising unemployment rate, the rising cost of living, crime and violence, and corruption in government. So these are all obviously very big concerns that South Africans have. And interestingly, if you looked at these from the perspective of wealthy versus lower on the economic pyramid versus based in townships, those top 5 concerns stayed the same across these analysis groups. So they really are the considerations that South African consumers are faced with on a daily basis. Then when we say to them, and how do you feel about the outlook of our country? And this is taking outside all of the different financial indices and what they have to say. This is really just from a consumer perspective, in your heart, how do you feel? And for the most part, South Africans are completely divided. We actually don't know. Half of us, let's say 40%, think that things are going to get better, and 44% think that things are going to get worse. And then we've obviously got a bunch of fence sitters. But the point is, we don't actually know at a country level how things are going. What we do know is that we are able to manage our own financial household positions in quite a strict way. I say that because the next question we asked South Africans is, how do you feel about the future of your household standing? So do you think that you're going to be better off financially, you and your household, in a year's time, or worse off, or you just don't know? And here you can see the overwhelming majority say that they believe that they're going to be better off financially in a year's time, which feels like a bit of a juxtaposition when you think about the fact that we just said that the country outlook is, we don't really know. And the only way that we can justify and inform why this could be the case, why South Africans feel optimistic about their own finances, despite the fact that we know that the inflationary and cost of living pressures are so high, is because South Africans do feel that they have a measure of control over the way that they spend their money. And so we're going to get into that very soon. The first thing I want to or one of the sort of precursors to sharing about how South Africans are managing their household finances is to take a look at what the sources of household finances actually are. And okay, so 50% of what makes the household income up in South Africa is your salary and wages. That's very closely followed by the SASSA grants and general others, followed by piecework, and then really interesting to me, but we've got gambling coming in at 4th place. And Miles, I actually remember you and I discussing this at a previous conference, because it was such an interesting point that gambling comes up as your 4th biggest form of income into the household. And traditionally, gambling has been seen as such a negative thing, and I'm not obviously taking away from that, but I'm just saying it is also quite a legitimate form of income into the home. And it's one of the self-classifications that people use when they say, I've got a hustle. One of those is actually gambling. And as you can see there, equal gambling, certainly the percentage of households that have gambling coming into their income source, that is equal with the amount of households that have money coming in from their own business. So it really is quite a significant form of income into the home. The scary thing about, oh yeah, Miles, did you want to say something? Oh, now we can't hear you. You have gone completely.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I would argue that that number is probably much, much higher. It's just that it's embarrassing to admit, I would think, that you're essentially gambling for livelihood. But that is shocking that it's higher than people starting businesses or money from alternative businesses. And I think if you fast forward that stat 5-10 years, we're going to have a big problem as a country.
Yeah, I agree. And especially because if you, as I just said, we are a consumer research agency. I can't tell you the number of briefs that we are getting from clients in the online basing space, which is a sure indication that they have money to spend, which means they must be growing. So yeah, I agree. And then one of the other thing, and I suppose the conversation around gambling almost framed this, was to say what are people doing to supplement their income? Because we have moved to this world where people don't get a single source of income into the home. It is multiple sources, and we can almost move away from calling that a hustle. It just is the reality, is that we get alternative streams of income into the home, and that is actually very variable month on month. You don't really know how much you're going to get from your different streams each month. The point is, so 39% of people in our country saying no, they're not actively doing that, but they're considering how, and that very much is a product of whether or not people have access to the resources that unlock that, all the thoughts in their brain. Do they have access to resources that are going to help them realize those? And that's why we're in a forum like this today. Then we've got 22% of people saying yes, they have started their own business. A further 20% saying that they have started their own business and it's now actually become their primary source of income. And then we've got 9% of people who say that they have taken on a second job. So ultimately what we're saying is there's just short of 10%, 1 in 10 people in our country that are not actively considering how they can create additional sources of income into the home. And the point here is that we are sitting with a population of people who are desperately creative and trying all kinds of solutions to make this current macro and domestic situation that we find ourselves in manageable. And I want to deep dive. So that's
Sorry,
not
guys.
me, but
Guys, can we please be muted and... Yeah, we can go ahead, please.
Cool. What worries me is that is my name against that video, which makes no sense. Anyway, sounds good. It looks like I've got a doppelganger. Okay, so I want to set the scene for the plate. We've called it the plate of our nation. Can you see what we've done here, hey? Or the plate of and state of and all these things. We're calling the plate of our nation really sets the scene for how South Africans can make decisions. If we don't have food on our tables, we pretty much can't make any decisions in terms of buying goods and services that are supplementary to just staying alive. And so being able to analyze what the state of our plates look like will give us a good view as entrepreneurs in this room as to what the potential is for our products and services to go wider than just feeding a hungry tummy. So the first thing to say is that and I've got some data to back it up, but basically, and you guys know, right, we're sitting with a massive rising inflation, and the impact is just detrimental specifically to our food bills. And to manage that, what South Africans are saying they're doing is that they're buying only what's needed and cutting back on spending. And the question actually specifically referred to luxuries, so cutting back on luxuries. And I guess the interesting point here is that luxuries is a very relative term. What is a luxury to somebody who is hungry versus what is a luxury to somebody who is not is very different. And even obviously within those economic brackets, we've got all kinds of definitions of luxury. When we deep dived that idea of luxury, what people said is that their luxury has come to mean buying anything outside of what I don't desperately need. That's a scary definition of luxury. And what people were saying is that they're making trade-offs on things that are not essential. For example, let's say we are a household and we need sauces in our home. Typically, we may as brands, we may think that tomato sauce brands compete with one another to make it into the grocery basket. The mayonnaise brands all compete with each other to make it into the shopping basket. But what's actually happened is that consumers themselves are redefining the idea of sauces, and they're talking about sauces rather than tomato sauce and mayo, and picking one. And the one that they choose is the one that has the more applicability within the household, so more use cases. And so the point is, cutting back on luxuries is happening in the grocery basket at quite a big rate. Yeah.
I love that point, because obviously we work with food entrepreneurs, and anyone who knows me, I will tell you my frustration is if I see one more chili sauce, I'm going to shoot myself, right? But everybody says, no, my chili sauce is the best. And all the retailers have been telling us is that there's limited shelf space, number one. So there's already a ton of chili sauce. And by the way, I'm making fun of chili sauce, but this applies to almost every category, right? Is that if you're just going to be another also ran in a category, it's not only now not that there's no shelf space for you, but it is even that the customers are not going to buy you if you don't, if your product doesn't touch more than just its intended, utility. So it must be a source that is a baseline for almost anything. I can use it for more than one aspect. I think that's super important to note.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like, so what we are finding is that in that example that I was giving you, is that mayonnaise is being chosen over tomato sauce because there are more opportunities to use it. You can use it on your chips, your burgers, your salads, whereas tomato sauce is only a burgers and chips kind of event. So yes, and by the way, we're finding that across cleaning ingredients as well. So people will just buy Sunlight liquid and use that for the entire household, rather than in the past where you might have one for cleaning surfaces, one for cleaning dishes, that kind of thing. So absolutely your point. If we're talking about food, products that have multiple applicability, different occasions, that's where you need to be shooting. Cool. We are also saving and investing our money. Now, this is not the higher order stuff that wealthy people do. This is being savvy with the way we're spending our money. And one of the very interesting things that we found, this is now the second year running that this has become a reality, is that we are finding people very consciously making the decision to exit using credit and move into buying on lay-by. So you delay the purchase, or you delay the receipt of your product, but you pay for it for 3 months and then you kind of take receipt of it after that. So delaying our gratification, as humans, we hate doing that, and yet we're actually making that decision in the interests of saving a couple of rands that would have gone to credit. I think, thank God for humanity that we're doing that, but I think it's also a very scary.
What would be the difference? What's the difference in that example?
You don't. So if you're going to buy on credit, you're putting it on your credit card. So you are spending money you don't have, but you get immediate receipt of the product. Yeah. Whereas with lay-by, you don't pay any credit, but you leave it at the store and you go in each month and pay for the product you paid off over 3 months, and then you collect it only when you're done.
So from an e-commerce platform, that's super important that you now also have that opportunity.
It is in e-commerce as well. It's increasingly offered in there are very few e-commerce platforms that don't offer interest-free credit these days.
Like FlexiPay, PayPal.
Even the banks, by the way, even the banks on their the e-commerce platforms that they support offer interest-free. I know because I came from a bank yesterday who was having that conversation, offering interest-free. Yeah. And then, guys, a huge one is the store loyalty cards. And I know it's difficult for you to necessarily affect what that looks like, but the point is, if you can find ways to talk to retailers around how you are supporting the lifestyle of the consumers that they serve, then you can get into the loyalty programs. The loyalty programs, and the retailers will admit this, they require a lot of work. So some of them, they are set up to benefit the store rather than the lifestyle of the consumer. But you will notice, if you look at the likes of, well, actually, even if you take Checkers, if you take most of the grocery retailers are moving in this direction, orientating what they offer and what the benefits to being with them are around the consumer rather than the brand itself. So how are you, as the brands that you are offering, supporting a consumer lifestyle and therefore feeding into that loyalty program? Okay, I'm going to skip the other two because they're quite obvious. People would naturally be researching prices and offers online before they go in store, and then budgeting very strictly. Here's the thing. So remember I was saying we're cutting back on luxuries, and we're doing everything we can to manage our household budgets. I want to give you a visual picture of what that actually looks like in a typical South African home. This is data that comes from a division of Kantar called World Panel. World Panel analyzes, what is the number? It's like 6,000. It's 6,500 households in South Africa, representative of the country from lower economic all the way through to highest. And we scan their till slips, the till slips that are used, and we monitor all of the different categories that are purchased in terms of the frequency and the brands. And what this tells you over here is that from the point of March, it actually started in December that previous year, but it's rolled data. So from the point of December 2022, we are literally getting at a collective grocery level, we are consuming less products in the household. This is a volume-based metric. So what it's saying is there are fewer grocery packs across the grocery spectrum. So all the way from tomato sauce and mayonnaise to bread to, I don't know, tinned products, all of that kind of stuff. The sum of all of that together is in decline in households in South Africa. And the logical then progression is to say, well, if we are getting less food into the house, we are eating less food at a national level. And that's scary because that has not changed since the time of December 2022. And here's your visual representation of that.
Sorry, does it not mean just more people are eating out, perhaps, or buying fast food or something?
No, so we've got, it is a good question, but no, we've got, it was 48% of people who are eating out less than they used to, and takeout remains around the same. It hasn't even changed since the time of COVID. Yeah. Okay, and then obviously the natural result, right, is that we're all trying so hard to budget, and so there is a high proportion, in this case around 43% of our country, who are trying out cheaper brands or new brands that are cheaper than the ones that they would usually buy. That is a natural, it follows quite naturally because if people are looking for cost saving that they would do that. But what I actually want to point out to you rather is how difficult it is for consumers to make that trade-off. As South Africans, and when I talk to our global counterparts in Europe, they can't believe this. But as South Africans, we do everything we can to remain brand loyal, even when we're desperately cash strapped, because we believe in that brand and it carries less risk. If I invest money in this, I know how it's going to work. But if I choose a cheaper option and it fails on me, then I've lost times two. And so in our country, there is a real, most people are not interested in trying out cheaper products than the brands that they know and love. And I want to point you to this side of the screen over here. Oh, yes, there's my cursor. This is the analysis of people that are going to try out cheaper brands, broken down by lower income homes, higher income homes, and township-based homes, which is obviously the sum of both. And you can see what happened between 2022 and 2023 is that our lowest income homes were the ones that were actually the most disinterested in moving into cheaper products. So because the risk for them is the most high. And yet it had to happen in 2023, that jump had to happen, and it stayed round about the same. So it's a bit of a bleak picture, right? But please don't hear me saying that what you guys need to do on this call is discount your product, because that's actually the exact opposite of what I'm saying. Yes, people need cheaper options, and so we need to do things like promotions in order to make ourselves accessible. But our main goal as people who build brands is to keep that brand top of mind, not the price point of that brand. And I can say that because on this next slide as well, bear in mind that we just said almost half of the country are trying out cheaper brands. There is 25%, okay, 24%, a quarter of our country that will stick with the same brands that they know and love, even if they are more expensive, than other brands. And the point here is that this is not a different group of people. This is the same group of people. What it means is that the same group of people will sometimes try cheaper products because that's the trade-off worth making, so that they make budget available for the products or for the brands that they know and love. It's a really important consideration. You prioritize based on brands that you love and trust. And so your job as marketers needs to be to continue to build trust for your brand so that you get chosen without compromising your price point.
But at the same time, it's a great opportunity for startups or new brands because now they have an opportunity to be tried, whereas they wouldn't have been tried between earlier than 2020 or 2022 because the brand loyalty was that high. So now you've got an opportunity to be tried, and if you live up to that, to your brand's efficacy, then people will actually reduce it other places in order to keep you and therefore create you into a bigger brand.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's a really good one. And there's a step further to that, which we'll get to in a moment. But it's the fact that new brands like yourselves and entrepreneurial type brands are so agile. Like you guys make decisions so quickly, whereas all the behemoths sitting behind here that I generally present to take months and months and months to make a decision. And if you talk about how we are optimizing the digital and social spaces to drive traffic to our brands and to the places where people purchase our brands, that's where you're actually at an advantage, because it takes these other brands forever to affect any change and to stay with what's current. So I'm going to show you some slides around that to give you some encouragement in that area. Okay, so the one thing, I mentioned the fact that people will set aside money, prioritize brands that they know and love, even if they're more expensive, by setting aside money for them because they trust them. The way psychologically how that works in the brain is that people love to rationalize their purchase. And so we use point of difference as an anchor point for that. So we'll say, oh, I'm just looking at whatever's around my house. I bought that kettle. It was more expensive, but it has a cute little light. And also I know that it doesn't break and it comes with a warranty. So I've used a point of difference. It's a perceived point of difference in my mind to justify my purchase. And that leads to greater satisfaction. It also leads to me putting aside a certain amount of money to invest in a brand that I love. In our case, when we're all of us on the call here, we are all local, right? And that could very well be our point of difference. But it needs to be quite tangible for South Africans who are so cash strapped that the hypothetical thought of I want to support local might not be accessible. And I say that because 34%, so let's say it's like a third of our country, claim that they're prepared to invest their time and money to support companies that do good. In this case, let's assume do good means support local. But 2/3, so the bottom stat on there, find that it's difficult to be environmentally friendly and support local because the products that are better are harder to find and more expensive. That is absolutely a challenge for you because things like shelf space and all of those things, those are massive challenges. But people are saying they want to, but they're not able to. And it's a justification, right? It's a justification for inactivity. But if we're able to make our point of difference, being local, tangible, then I think we can overcome that. And I've got a thought around how we do that, which is not going to be new news to you, but I want to give you the numbers behind it. The UN sustainability goals. We said to South Africans, what do you think, how can you prioritize these goals for us in terms of what are the most important ones and what are the least important in your world as South Africans? And the two overwhelmingly that people prioritize in the top are reducing poverty and ensuring that people have jobs. So as Proudly South Africa, if you can talk to those two, and I would obviously focus on the jobs one probably more, but if you could talk to those, that creates that rational benefit. So you've created a ladder. Instead of saying support local because it feels nice to your heart, what you can say is support local because by doing that, you are reducing unemployment in our country. That's a very different and rational.
Jobs. We have opening more factories.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, so that's our point of difference and making it tangible. I'm going to move on to a little bit of a view on how South Africans shop online. Well, whether they shop online and how they shop online. So the first thing, which a lot of people tend to find quite unexpected, is that when we ask South Africans, have you ever shopped online? 82% of people say that they have. That's the stat that most marketers find quite big because they're like, well, 80% of our country have shopped online. Like that sounds strange, but it's actually not when you consider the fact that online is actually any online platform that facilitates a transaction. And we know how big WhatsApp. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's WhatsApp, it's Facebook Marketplace. Yes, it's Take-A-Lot. Yes, it's like it's all of these e-commerce platforms. Checkers 6060, all of them count. But predominantly what's driving this is the use of WhatsApp as a platform for facilitating transactions. And I want to show you on the right-hand side there. Look at these growth numbers. This is year on year, so 23 to 24. Look at how lower income homes, 61% say that they'd ever shopped online when it was 2023, jumped all the way up to 76% in 1 year. That is massive growth. That is the type of growth that we don't see ordinarily, sort of in consumer research. I must qualify that to say that, remember, the people that we are speaking to in this study are connected. In other words, they do access the internet. So I'm not talking about the people based in rural areas that are not accessing the internet. I sound like a boomer. And then obviously that the highest would be the highest use of online would sit amongst high income homes, and then townships sit somewhere in between because they are the sum of
But
both.
as internet penetration increases, because we work in townships like Alex, we see companies like Fiber Time busy putting fiber, and all the mobile operators are pushing hard. And also fiber is a game changer, right? Because it's always on and it's ubiquitous internet. I'm willing to put that number is going to be exponential in the next 5 years. It's going to be like oxygen, because
Yeah.
once data or access becomes like watching TV, then advertising, then trading on it, it just becomes the next step.
100%. Yeah. Look, I must say that we were quite surprised. We subscribed to, without getting into the detail, we subscribed to a study called MAPS, which is a nationally representative sample of, I don't know what it is, it's like 30,000 people. It's massive. And we were surprised at how small the jump was in terms of internet penetration from 2022 to 2023. But then there was quite a big leap from 23 to 24. And when I say big, I'm talking at a I'm talking about 50 million, 55 million South Africans. And I think the increase year on year was it was 3.2%. So, but that sounds like maybe a small number, but if you quantify that, Miles can get his calculator out. But 3% of our population is a big number, right? So yes, that growth is definitely happening. And as you add 3%, the next year it's exponential. So you've included that 3% in the following growth. So yeah, long way of saying I agree. The point, though, that I do want to make is that as much as we want to talk about how important online is, that doesn't mean that you guys need to take your mind or your focus off the offline experience, because South Africans still do predominantly prefer to shop offline. So over here, and I'm going to break it down for you.
That's 2 million people.
Thank you. So 2 million people this year that are using the internet that weren't using last year. That's a massive number. Yeah. So and we're going to get to the penetration of the different platforms on those by people who use the internet in a moment, to give you an idea of where you want to invest your time and efforts. So okay, so let's talk about the offline environment. So we've got 43% of people, so that's almost half of our country, do still shop more in store than they do in an online space. 28% of people shop more online, so just over a quarter, and then 30% do a bit of both. If you break that down by our different analysis groups, it doesn't actually change that much. So I was surprised by this. I was expecting that when we look at lower income homes, that you would find that the percentage of people who shop offline is drastically higher. It's not. And again, this is the point that we're making, is that the internet, again, I sound like a boomer, but the internet is for everybody. Like, everybody is going to be in e-commerce in time, because we are democratizing access to being online. Okay. And then in terms of where people shop when they go in these online transactional environments, the number one place, so 2/3 of people, by the way, this was your most often. So where we asked people here was to say, where do you most often shop when you are online? And 67, so 2/3 of the country shop on e-commerce websites, which is why you guys as Proudly SA are doing exactly the right thing. Obviously, what now comes is, how do we make that visible to South Africa, to tell them that this is a platform that people can go to shop online? But that is where people are doing most of their online shopping. That's followed by Marketplace with not a small percentage at 25%, massive, and then WhatsApp following very closely behind at 20%. If you nail those, you've pretty much got all the others covered. Oh, and actually, I want to tell you about this over here. TikTok influencers or adverts. So, there's obviously a whole bunch of different social media sites, and TikTok, actually, he called me out in a presentation once, the head there. He said, we're not a social media site. We are a source of entertainment. So I was like, oh, my apologies. So social media and entertainment sites. But out of all of those, TikTok is the one with the highest conversion rate to a sale. So it's not necessarily the platform that people are using to build brand, but it is the platform that is converting the brands that we have created into sales. And so in other words, what I'm saying is if you put a link to your online store in TikTok, it's going to have a greater conversion rate than if you put it into Instagram or Facebook. Okay. Now, another form of online.
Minutes left. We've got 5 minutes left.
Only 5 minutes. Oh, goody. Okay, that's cool. I thought we had a few more. To your point, Miles, around how people access the internet, just out of interest, so you know right now what it looks like. We've got about 2/3 of the country that access from Wi-Fi, whether from I did say Wi-Fi from home, but it's more Wi-Fi from home or work. And then the remaining 30% do that using their mobile data, which is very high. And only a small percent using free Wi-Fi zones, but those are expanding over time, so that will change. This is a snapshot picture amongst connected South Africans of the penetration of different media platforms. So if we're talking about which platforms you guys need to use to optimize awareness and consideration, these are where you want to focus your attention. Email remains high. The question is, I've received it quite a few times, is should I be doing direct marketing on email? Please don't. Just because email penetration is the highest after Google searches does not mean that you should use that as a platform. It has the lowest conversion rate possible. So no, don't do that. You want to be using social networks, your instant messaging platforms, and absolutely online videos, which ties very closely to general entertainment. And I'm putting together in entertainment podcasts, streaming music. No, not TV on demand, but podcast, streaming music, and online videos are sitting in the entertainment space. They are growing massively. They just never stop growing. And they are the greatest way that agile businesses like yourselves are able to build brand and create the follow through to performance. Okay, on the right-hand side, you guys will get the deck after this if you need it, but I'm aware that I'm under time pressure. So the on the right-hand side is the penetration. What that means is the percentage of South Africans who use these different platforms. And then in the middle here are the growth rates, the year-on-year net increases. What I want to show you as well is the different social media social media platforms that people are using. Without getting into too much detail, WhatsApp stays right at the top. We are an incredible country on WhatsApp, followed by YouTube, and now TikTok, which moved from 4th position in 2023 up to 3rd position in 2024, which is what this data is for. This is my key slide. There's one other that I want to share, but this is a very important point to land. In a different study, it's called Media Reactions. We speak to marketers who invest in media, who invest in advertising media platforms, and we spoke to South Africans. And we said to the media guys, where do you invest your money from your clients? And then we spoke to South Africans and we say, where do you prefer being spoken to by brands? And all of these green lines at the top here are offline platforms. In other words, South Africans are saying, I don't want to be spoken to in my online spaces by brands. And I mean, literally everything. Like, speak to me on billboards, in out of home, speak to me at a sponsored event, talk to me on TV, but just don't enter my social space and my digital space because I'm doing other things there and you guys are being intrusive. The reason that this is happening is because brands, and I'm not necessarily including you guys in this because you guys are way more agile and you create content rather than advertising, but brands have not caught on how to invest all the money that they have in creating entertainment on behalf of a brand that is now the new word for advertising. So the message we're trying to land here is to brands is stop calling what you do advertising. If you can create the perception that what you're putting out there is entertainment, then there is absolutely no reason that South Africans would not be perceptive to engaging with that content. Because we've said it already, we are all over TikTok, we're all over online video, we're all over these places. But if you're not going to offer us entertainment, we're not hanging around. So that's why you guys are in such a great position, is if you can create the type of content that acknowledges the equity that each of these different platforms hold, because the way you advertise or the way you entertain in TikTok looks different to how you entertain in Instagram, to how you entertain in Facebook, if you still do that. If you can capitalize on that and move quickly with trends and things, you will be able to build brand equity on those platforms. And that's where you win against big business. So that was my second last point. And my very last point is, I don't need to talk to this one, but my very last point is what next? And this is so I've spoken about the what next in terms of make sure that you are putting effort and time behind creating entertainment in the name of your brand. That's point one. And point two over here is figure out your meaningful difference. Like, spend some time doing this. I'm going to tell you what meaningful difference is in a moment, but if you are able to figure out your meaningful difference, people will pay, even in this hyperinflationary environment where cost of living is such a difficulty. People in South Africa are willing to pay 14% more for those brands that they see as meaningfully different. The question is, what is meaningfully different? Basically, it means you meet needs that consumers have, whether emotional and or functional. So you meet a need, and you are seen as different from others who also meet that need. That's a little bit theoretical, and I sometimes I just like to use practical examples about how this works. So the one that just came to mind was with a friend of mine was shopping with her husband, and she was just talking about, Woolworths does that thing where you can spin and win, and you win it's their beauty fair thing. You spin it, you win it, and you get like 10% off at the next product or whatever it is. And she was just saying to him how cool it was that she had just gotten 10% off beauty at Woolworths to use across any of the beauty products that they have there. But then as soon as she had finished saying that, she said to him, okay, cool, I'll meet you at the food court, but I'm just going to Bobbi Brown to buy some lipstick. And he said to her, why are you going to Bobbi Brown? You were just telling me that you're so excited about this 10% coupon that you got. And she said, yes, but. That is what meaningful difference is. She was able to justify why investing 4 times the price in a lipstick was worth it. So that higher priced item was worth investing behind, because she had rationalized in her mind that there was a meaningful point of difference to that product. And that's what you guys need to do. If you know that there are consumers walking this earth that can say yes, but in response to why you should be in their home, then you've nailed meaningful difference. And then all you need to do is find ways to amplify that meaningful difference in your social spaces and in your online spaces. Okay, Miles, did I finish on time?
Just about.
Yes.
I can't thank you enough, Stacey. I think super insightful as always. And I'm certainly hoping the people on the call are appreciating the value of this information, because you speak to multinational big brands and they've got these data insights, and we've taken the trouble today to make this insight, as rich as it is, available to people who are in the beginning of their journeys, or maybe they've already begun. And I think for me, it is important that people understand that if you're going to compete at national or global stage, these are the data insights you must have and understand. It's not just about the product you make that you are passionate about. It's the landscape. How does your customer interact with your product? What are the experience maps? And why experience maps matter, as Stacey has shown, is that people will go to the e-commerce store to buy. In other words, to complete the transaction. But the decision on whether to buy happens way before on different platforms and social media platforms. It doesn't happen at the point of purchase. At point of purchase, they've decided they're coming there to execute the sale. But the salesmanship happens to be, and it happens. You could be sending people adverts. People don't buy like that. They buy from people. And this is why, as you've seen online, it's the content creators, even the business owners have become content creators, because people want to buy from that person, not from their company necessarily. So I hope that insight was taken, and I hope this session was the meaningful difference to every other session or webinar you've attended. So with that, I can't thank you enough, Stacey. You're always there, especially for the entrepreneurs who are beginning their journey. So thank you for your time and input. Once again, thanks everybody. I hope you've gained benefit from this. I'm going to hand over to Moni for the next part of the webinar.
Thanks for that, Miles. The next part being the Q&A session. So there are a few that are in the chat, which I will read in a sec. But if anybody else has any questions or any points you'd like to raise or contribute to the conversation, please feel free to put it either in the chat, or you can raise your hand should your environment allow, so that we can unmute the mic. So just to read off of the Q&A section that we have here, the first question that I think is important is to Stacey. The question asked is, what is the comparison of online spend by South Africans with these Chinese sites such as Temu and Shein? And how do we position our local platforms to combat against these giants?
Such a cool question. And I can answer it because I attended a webinar yesterday by a company called Brand Map. Where did I save this now? And I literally have the actual answer in numbers for you, because we didn't cover that in the barometer, but we have actually included it this year. But as I say, we've just gone into field for this year. Okay, so I took some screenshots from the webinar that I was on yesterday, and the Temu Shein thing is not here. Oh, that's unfortunate. I was really certain that I saw it. Okay, I don't have it here. Clearly, that wasn't one of the screenshots that I took. But what I can tell you is that the growth was phenomenal, absolutely amazing, and in a bad way. But what surprised me was that even, remember when they imposed all the extra tax and whatever it was, it didn't seem to slow down the growth at all. So I can't tell you what the numbers were. I don't know the exact penetration numbers, but the growth was like this, and then local fashion was completely on the opposite. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then I think the second half of that question is, how do we position our local platforms to combat against these giants?
Yeah, it's such a hard one. And I think that the answer to that is, it's not an easy answer, obviously. But if you guys can sit and take some real time to figure out your meaningful point of difference, your justification for why that product is the one that needs to end up in my house as opposed to the other one that's sitting right next to it on the shelf, then you've nailed that. The point that Miles was making earlier was around creating what we call predisposition. You've got to build your brand up in the minds of consumers so that when they get to the shelf, they're already predisposed to wanting that product. And then you need to obviously make sure that it's available. But the first port of call is to figure out your meaningful difference so that you can talk about your brand. What we say is create salience. So talk about your brand in the social media space, in the digital spaces that you have access to build up those brand perceptions so that they find them in market. And that's not easy. That's not an easy, and it's consistency.
And can I add to that? Like speaking about meaningful difference, or people who are willing to pay a premium for a good brand, because, when you've got little money, you want to buy Testic because, it supposedly rises 3 times. And, and there was a lot of brand equity built into that. But this is why sessions like this are important, because the data shows that a lot of people have now become less brand conscious because they've tried other products and they realize some products actually, like washing powder can be just washing powder, right? You don't have to have Omo like back in the day. That's assuming that washing powder you've tried is effective. Now, the problem is what we see in working in townships, for example, is that because there's no brand loyalty as such anymore, unless obviously, to Stacey's point, it's something that you won't give up and you're willing to pay for. But like those are few and fewer apart. Like those are category leaders typically, but everything else is open for business. It's like everything else is systems go. The challenge you see with that is that we're finding a lot of people are now also willing to try fake and counterfeit products, knowing that they're fake and counterfeit. And that's been happening. That trend line has been happening on so many different industries. We didn't realize that it will ultimately impact something as important as food, because you ingest food. But if someone has been buying a fake bag and fake shoes and fake, like, it's only a matter of time that disloyalty or distrust in brand equity is going to lead to other categories. And the problem with that, then, it means the Chinese brands or counterfeit brands. And most of those brands, the reason why they become cheap is because they don't have to have the trust elements that come with brand equity. I just got to make it cheap, and if it just does the basics, you are happy. So like the world is fundamentally changing, and I guess essentially I'm saying is we need to think differently. You can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results, because the world is fundamentally changing.
sorry, I feel like we just keep doing this, but building on each other. But I think the point here is, let's not automatically assume that people are only going to pick products because they're cheaper. That's not how the human brain works. And you're not going to pick something up just because it is cheaper. In fact, often we'll look at it and be like, oh, that's cheap. So why is it cheap? There must be something faulty or wrong or whatever. If consumers are picking us up because we are cheap, then as soon as they have any money, they won't be picking us up. So you're not building brand loyalty. You're not building the brand perceptions and the predisposition in people's minds ahead of time. You are trading only on price. I have an example that may or may not be useful. I think it is quite useful, but let's do it this way. The biggest clothing and fast fashion retailer in South Africa that sells things really cheaply. Okay, pretty sure we all know who that is. Okay, their biggest asset was price. That was what they traded on all the time. That was their point of difference, was price. Price is way too functional. They didn't spend time building brands up in the minds of consumers. They offered fashion at a cheap enough price that people would buy it. Enter brands like Shein and Temu, and they just traded better on price, and therefore that big brand just lost share at a colossal rate. So my point is, yes, you might be chosen today because you're cheap. Chances are you're not. If you're a brand new brand, they're not picking you up because of the price. And so again, the point that I'm making is, do not run into the do not believe that what you need to be doing is being cheap. That's not it. What you need to be doing is figuring out your meaningful point of difference, telling people about it, and then pricing your product at the price it should be, that people can justify why they are buying it.
All right, thank you for that, Stacey and Miles. That was very insightful. I think the other questions that I'm seeing here are mostly regarding the Kantar deck. They're asking if there's another way that they could get any access to any of the other research outside of the webinar. I know you mentioned you will share the presentation, so that will be sent to everybody who has attended today. But is there any other platform that people could maybe go to maybe have access to the stats, or is there a way that works, Stacey?
So we don't run, this is pretty much the only piece of research that we run independently of client commissioned work in South Africa. But what you can do is, if you go onto the Kantar website, because remember Kantar is a global company, if you go on there, you will get so many amazing thought leadership articles. They don't quote South Africa specifically, but a lot of the time South Africa follows the trends in other markets. So if you're looking for things like the top 50 trends for 2025 or whatever it is, you'll find that kind of information on the website. I'm not saying it's specific to South Africa, but trends are trends, and you kind of pick the ones that you know are more relevant in South Africa than in other markets.
All right, noted. And then I think the other question that I had was, is there information on healthcare and medicine expenditures as well, or do you only focus on the topics that you covered today?
Yeah, so we don't have that available. And this study particularly is meant to not be at a category level. So it's meant to be, how, broadly speaking, how are South Africans behaving. But what we do have in this year's survey, which goes in this year's version, which goes into field next month. What are we? March. It goes in this month. Is a question around, it's a question around the categories that people shop in an online space, which I think you guys are going to find interesting. So when that data comes out, I can let whoever my contact is here know. And then because then you'll be able to see what percentage of spend in the online space goes to different categories. I do remember we did this a while back, and pharmaceuticals was really low down on the list because it's difficult to buy those in an online space. But anyway, I'll be able to share a bit more then.
All right, noted. Thank you so much. I think there was a question to Proudly Say, but Janine did answer that in the chat. So I think with that, we can close the Q&A, given the fact that we're almost out of time. I think the final thing that we have to do then is the vote of thanks, which is to thank our speakers for the valuable insights shared today, and to assure you that your expertise and contributions have truly enriched the session. So thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Janine. I'd also like to let everybody know that the webinar was organized in collaboration with Proudly SA. So we'd like to extend our gratitude to the Proudly SA team and all their efforts in making it possible. We'd also like to thank our Wakanda team members for their hard work and dedication behind the scenes. And most importantly, we'd like to thank everybody who joined online just to be a part of this webinar and all the questions that were posed. Thank you so, so much for your participation. It really did make the discussion very impactful. And we definitely look forward to connecting again. On my side, that's all that I have to say as the host. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have an amazing day. And yeah, all the best. Let's go do great things in business.
And
cheers,
thank
guys.
you, Moni. Well done.
Thanks, Miles.
Thanks so much, everybody.
That's a wrap, as they say.
Thanks, Miles. Much appreciated.
Are we off air?
I'm not sure. Lesego, can you advise?
I'm about to end the webinar for all.
Okay, thanks, Lesego.
Are we still live?
I'm just gonna check on 9 Miles.
This picture, that chicken is cooked, but the tomatoes are fresh and the basil. Fuck. You know, this was just done by a stylist. There's no logic to this meal. Oh, I was not on mute.
Hi, Miles. We can officially jump off. So yeah, work is done here.